Chapter 4. A frenzied onslaught ensues as razor-sharp limbs rain down upon the man, forcing him to roll and scramble backward in a desperate bid for survival. One of the monsters leaps towards him, its grotesque form cutting through the air with terrifying speed. Still clutching the severed limb of the previous creature, the man instinctively thrusts it forward like a makeshift spear. The airborne monster, unable to change course, slams directly into the jagged limb, impaling itself. Its weight crashes down onto the man, pinning him beneath its twitching, lifeless body. The remaining creatures gather around the heap, their hollow sockets fixed on their trapped prey. In unison, they lash out with relentless fury, their flailing limbs striking at the pile in a savage attempt to reach the man beneath.
Oh, damn it! How the hell do I get out of this?
He screams, squirming desperately under the crushing weight of the lifeless monster pinning him. His mind races, panic threatening to consume him, until a thought strikes.
Wait, this might actually be a good chance to get away, while they're distracted.
Determined, he grits his teeth and claws at the shifting sand beneath him. The ground seems to resist, every grain slipping and sliding under his weight, but inch by inch, he drags himself forward. Above him, the monsters tear savagely into their fallen kin, shredding flesh in their frenzied attempts to reach him. With a final heave, the man breaks free, his body rolling out from beneath the pile. Gasping for breath, he spares one brief glance back before bolting. There's no plan, no aim, just pure, desperate flight. Every limping step sends a fresh jolt of pain through his injured leg, but he forces himself onward. The creatures shriek behind him, a sound that chills him to the bone. He risks another look back and sees one of them, smaller but terrifyingly fast, leap from the writhing heap and charge straight for him.
Give me a break!
He yells, his voice raw with frustration and fear. He pushes his body harder, his legs screaming in protest. Each stride feels like it might be his last, as he stumbles and groans with the effort. The creature's screeches grow louder. It's closing the distance far too quickly.
Get away from me! You!
Before he can finish, a searing pain shoots through his chest. His breath catches in his throat, and his legs buckle beneath him. He collapses onto the sand, the world around him spinning as darkness edges into his vision. One of the monsters strikes with lethal precision, its jagged limb piercing straight through the man's body and lifting him off the ground. Blood drips steadily from the wound, staining the creature's limb as the man dangles there, groaning, clutching desperately at the last threads of life.
Bastard!
He manages to spit out, his voice weak but defiant, a final curse against his tormentors. His vision blurs, his eyes growing heavy, until a sudden, violent jolt sends a shockwave through his body. The force propels him off the limb, and he's flung forward. One of the other creatures, in its blind hunger, had charged into the first in an attempt to steal the prey. Its graceless collision sends the two monsters sprawling into each other, while the man tumbles across the rocky ground. His head strikes the earth with a sickening thud, sending pain exploding through his skull. When he finally stops, the man finds himself teetering on the edge of a cliff. He blinks through the haze of pain and blood trickling into his eyes, barely registering the sheer drop just inches away. Groaning, he tries to push himself up, but the sound of snarls behind him freezes him in place. The monsters have stopped their scuffle and now turn their empty eyes back to him, their prey. Their grotesque forms loom larger as they approach, clawed limbs twitching in anticipation. The man glances back at the cliff, then at the advancing creatures. His chest heaves with labored breaths as he grimaces through the pain.
Not a chance, you scum!
He growls, summoning the last of his strength. With a sharp twist of his torso, he hurls his body to the side and lets gravity take hold. He plunges down the cliffside, the jagged rocks rushing past as the wind roars in his ears. The man lies motionless at the base of the cliff, his body battered and broken. His vision blurs, the world around him twisting and shifting as he struggles to focus. Every breath is shallow and labored, his chest heaving with effort. Through the haze, his eyes catch sight of an opening, carved into the face of a parallel cliff, a dark, shadowed cave. Hope flickers faintly within him. Shelter. He forces himself to move, his trembling hands pushing against the ground as he slowly rises to his knees. Each step towards the cave feels like a monumental effort, his legs threatening to buckle beneath him. He stumbles, his body screaming in protest. Finally, the strain overwhelms him, and he collapses onto the ground. Darkness rushes in as he passes out, his battered form crumpled at the edge of safety. When his eyes flutter open, he's greeted by a hazy red blur. Groggy and disoriented, he groans, his mind still clouded by exhaustion and pain. The ringing in his ears persists as he attempts to focus on the imposing figure before him.
Mister?
The man instinctively tries to retreat, his hands scrabbling weakly against the surface behind him.
Wait, don't.
His movements are sluggish, his strength drained. His breath quickens as he fixes his gaze on the figure, its details still obscured by the haze clouding his vision. As he shifts in startled confusion, the blurry figure lunges forward and grabs him firmly. The man shouts and groans, his body writhing as he struggles to pull away from the unfamiliar grasp.
Hold still, or you'll fall.
The figure's voice commands, urgent but steady, as it keeps him in place. The man pauses for a moment, glancing around despite his hazy vision. Through the fog, he notices he's lying on a raised flat stone, precariously elevated. He turns his gaze back to the red blur. Slowly, his vision begins to clear, and the multiple indistinct shapes merge into one. He finds himself staring at a red-furred creature with long, pointed ears and a disturbingly scruffy face. The man's eyes widen in shock.
Who are you? Where am I?
He stammers, his voice trembling. In a desperate burst of adrenaline, he flings his arms forward, breaking free from the red character's grip. He scrambles upright, bracing himself defensively, every muscle in his body taut with fear and confusion.
Calm down. Quit your squirming, will you?
The red figure snaps, his tone firm but not hostile. His sharp eyes scan the man's body, his expression shifting to one of confusion.
You had a massive bloody wound on your leg and chest, but it's gone?
The man, oblivious to the creature's words, clambers down from the raised stone he'd been placed on, his movements stiff and uneasy. He takes in his surroundings, a dimly lit cave with jagged walls, before clutching his head as a sharp, searing pain strikes through him. He stumbles, doubling over in agony.
Hey, are you...
The red creature steps forward, concern flashing across his scruffy face.
Stay back!
The man shouts, throwing out a trembling hand to keep him at bay. His voice wavers between fear and defiance.
You're not gonna turn into one of those... things. Those... monsters. Are you?
The red-furred figure halts, his ears twitching.
What? Oh, you mean the Kral?
He arches a brow, his surprise evident.
You've been face to face with the Kral and survived? You should be thankful, buddy. Not many folks get to live to say they've encountered those bastards.
Kral?
The man echoes, his face contorting with confusion. He takes a cautious step back, still holding his head.
Then who are you? And where the hell am I? I don't even remember getting here.
The red character tilts his head and says,
Well, you just I think you fell from up there.
He points to the top of the cliff. The man turns to look, his eyes narrowing as he scans the jagged edge. Then, shaking his head, he waves a hand dismissively.
No. I'm not talking about the fall. I mean, here. This place.
He gestures around him, spinning slowly as he takes in his surroundings.
The cave?
The red creature responds, his ears twitching. The man exhales sharply, trying to gather his thoughts.
No, not the cave. Here. Everything. Out there. The sand. The cliffs. The monsters. I don't know where I am. And why am I even talking to you? Who are you?
He clutches his chest, turns away and starts walking. The red creature blinks in surprise, then quickly runs after him, stepping into his path.
Wait! Rocco.
The man pauses, glancing back.
Rocco?
My name, it's Rocco.
The man stares at him for a moment, his breathing steadying.
But who are you?
Rocco folds his arms, snapping back.
Hold on. Who are you? I just told you who I am. I don't know who you are or why you're here. I live here, buddy. You're the stranger, sigh.
He leans forward slightly, eyes narrowing.
You're not one of them, are you?
The man stares blankly at Rocco for a brief moment, his expression unreadable. Without a word, he turns and walks past him, his movements slow and deliberate. Rocco watches him go, his brows furrowing in frustration. With an exasperated huff, he flaps an arm at the man's back before turning around and plopping onto the raised stone. As Rocco watches the man slowly approach the cave's exit, a faint shuffle echoes through the still air. A shadow moves across the entrance, and suddenly, a dark silhouette steps into view, blocking the way. Both Rocco and the man freeze, their breaths caught in their throats. The figure raises what appears to be some sort of weapon towards the man.